Hello everyone and welcome to The Opinion, the talk show where your opinions matter. I am Mirna Santiago, and joining me for our conversation today, as always, is my co-host Adeline Ortiz and our guest, educator, consultant, and independent associate at Legal Shield, Crystal Cutler.
Hello. Welcome, Crystal.
Thank you.
Welcome. Well, our topic today is marrying for money, whether it is a form of prostitution or financially savvy. What do you think, Mirna?
I am going to get my feminist card revoked for this, but I have to say that it's financially savvy. I know women are raised to believe that we're going to grow up and we're going to find Prince Charming and he's going to be handsome and young and rich and he's just going to whisk us away on the white horse and we're going to live happily ever after. Well, that doesn't happen. So if you're creating a contract, because after all, that is what marriage is, right? In the olden days, it was a transfer of property from the father to the husband because women were property. They didn't own themselves. Well, now we own ourselves, but that doesn't mean that we don't still have value. And if we have value, then I think we should make the best decision we can for ourselves in terms of marriage. So why should you marry someone who's broke when you can just as well fall in love with someone who has money?
Well, thank you for crushing all of my hopes and dreams, okay? We should have had this conversation sometime before I chose to marry a broke husband for love. Basically, I think that there is so much to intellectualize about in life that some matters truly have to be left to the heart. And if this isn't one of those areas, then I have absolutely no idea what qualifies as being left to sort of your emotional thermometer to make that determination. If women truly do own themselves, as you say, and marriage is a contract, which essentially it is, then this exchange of property is really no more than modern day prostitution as far as I'm concerned.
We're talking about this in the context of women, but we know that it takes two people to make a successful marriage. And I'm reminded of a friend of mine who absolutely is an immigrant from Turkey, an older man, who was outraged because when he came to America, it's the only country on the planet where a man could have absolutely nothing, have no home, no money, no common sense, and still get a wife. He was outraged. He's right, because he was outraged because in his country, he had to do so much work to get his wife. He had to bring documents and show financial records that says that not only could he afford her and the kids that they had, but also her parents, and if they chose, his parents too, to support the entire family. Wow. And he could not understand how that wasn't a requirement here in this country.
It should be.
It should be. I think we would see lower divorce rates. In that vein, no one would think of saying his wife is a prostitute or that she's financially savvy. The emphasis shifts from the individual, from the woman, from the person, and onto the success of the family. And it actually sets up marriages for success. I wish we had that here. I love that. I loved his story. And I would love to see us doing something that kind of helps ourselves. We think of those as old world, old style, and we replaced it with new things, but I don't think we've done a better job for ourselves at all.
I absolutely agree. I don't think we've done better at all. And do you guys realize anyway that this whole concept of marrying for love is a very Western, if not American concept? In most countries of the world, like you were saying in Turkey, for instance, in India, there are arranged marriages and their divorce rates are basically non-existent. In Honduras, where I was raised with my grandmother, and my grandmother would veto people's boyfriends because if you brought a boy home who was not working or who came from a bad family, she'd be like, no, it's not happening. It just wasn't happening. You needed to find someone who she felt was going to be able to take care of you and any children you might have. And again, in Honduras, the divorce is just very, very low. I mean, now the divorce rates are creeping up because we're doing the whole marriage for love thing as opposed to marrying someone that you know is going to take care of you and you're not going to have those issues with. My parents have been married for 50 years. And my mother says the same thing. And when I asked my mother, well, how did you decide on my dad? You had suitors and whatever. And she said, well, you know what? They were better looking men, and your father was very tall and gangly. And But the one thing that he had was that he was going to school and he was working, and I knew that we weren't going to starve. They've been married for 50 years. So I think we're doing ourselves a disservice by just saying, oh, he's cute and I'm in love. And no, we need to start thinking.
Oh gosh, I take issue with this on several levels. First of all, an exchange, I think, an exchange of services or your body or anything else in marriage other than that you love each other and you want to spend the rest of your lives together is truly nothing more than modern day prostitution, okay? But I think at the same time, you know, when you say we need to start thinking, it's offensive and insulting to women because we do think, okay? We're thinking and we're thinking with our hearts, and I think that that this is one of those areas where you have to have that, where you are so, you go beyond intellectualizing the issue. You are so wholeheartedly committed to doing this, to making this relationship work. And that goes beyond intellectualizing. Now, the divorce rate may be pretty high in the United States, but I suspect that the suicide rate is a lot higher in some of those countries, okay? And looking at this, you know, Crystal, you raised a good point. You're saying that we're looking at this from the female standpoint, but yeah, let's look at it from the male standpoint, because truly here in the United States, when we talk about marrying for money, basically the typical scenario is some 22-year-old bombshell with somebody who's 40, 50 years older than her. Let's be realistic about what this relationship is about. It is physical, it is sexual, it is, what else is she bringing to this man other than these, you know, this physical component, all right? And it does downgrade women in our society.
Absolutely, and we know that men make the rules and define the terms, and so we're getting that downgraded term from those old rules and from the men who've made them. In fact, the golden rule even has that built in. He who has the gold makes the rules. And so we're all raised with that, and we're all conditioned to think of the man as this image of an established man, well prepared for money, well prepared for the world, and having this sort of financial savviness that he is able to bring to the marriage that exceeds the savviness of the woman, and that absolutely provides for the woman and provides for the family. And so I think that has a value. I wouldn't throw that out entirely, but I think when we're having this discussion, we have to realize that women who marry for money are still in the minority. And so it's a hot topic, but it affects a small number of women. The majority of women are in the family courts, in the divorce courts, fighting for the spousal and child supports and finances that they so rightly are entitled to. And so those numbers are, it's a hot topic, but the numbers don't match. There aren't as many people out there doing it. And we know that in this age where women have access to information, where they have freedoms, and we have more rights than ever in the history of mankind, we'd be savvy and do ourselves a good service to utilize all of that, to take a position and to participate in some of this. Then we'll see real change. Then we'll see new definitions for these age-old terms, and we'll see participation in policy and in law and even in this rulemaking. And then we'll see rules that really benefit family, benefit women, and that are child-centered.
Well, I have to tell you, Adeline, I really disagree with this whole prostitution talk, because when you're talking about prostitution and marriage, it makes it seem like there's only one thing, there's only one component that goes into the marriage. And I know we're kind of talking about the, you know, that poor unfortunate blonde woman, the big-breasted one who just married Hugh Hefner.
Oh yeah, poor thing.
I got to tell you, she's
far from poor.
I got to tell you though, she's earned every penny, because if you have to wake up to that in the morning, you know. But that being said, she is doing something that's intelligent for herself, and it's not just sex, you know, because there's so much that goes into marriage. There's companionship, there's the social benefits, there's all this other stuff, and even so, you know, we're kind of snickering, oh, she has to wake up to him, but she also has to be there for him. She has to listen to him. She has to accompany him to things. So.
Good puppy.
Yeah, we're doing
Sounds familiar.
We're basically doing it for free. You know, we're still doing laundry and washing. She doesn't even have to do all of that. So when you think about sort of being equally yoked with somebody, yes, we always think about this blonde bimbo who's
take it easy.
Oh, sorry.
She's blonde now.
who's getting married to the old man. But what about just finding someone who's maybe on your same level, or someone who has the potential? You know, instead of, it's not just about sex. There's so much more.
Oh gosh, yeah, so much more. You know what? The fact that you even bring up this Hugh Hefner marriage thing is just absolutely my case in point here. Okay, it's all of the benefits to her. Oh yes, you know, social status and money, and God bless the poor thing because she has to wake up to this man every morning. This is what marriage is reduced to. This is what we have to look forward to. Okay, that someone that you can't look at when you wake up in the morning, fantasizing about someone else. When you're with this, you know, 72-year-old wrinkled thing. Let's be realistic, okay? I mean, I know that we don't all choose.
Love you, Hugh.
You know who yeah, Hugh, by the way, you know, if you get divorced and it doesn't work out, okay, but, you know, for now, right, the reality is that, you know, you're talking about all of the ways that she benefits. How does she really benefit? There is this diminished look at the way that she's perceived. I mean, here you are on the one hand saying about all of these wonderful benefits to her, marrying well, elevating her social status and so on. But at the same time, you're referring to her as this blonde bimbo, okay? The perception of her is that she's some bumbling idiot, okay? Not that she's this intelligent woman who's entered into this phenomenal negotiated contract for herself, okay? But that she's an idiot, that she's a blonde bimbo who's gone into this relationship. And really, what is it for him? At the end of the day, this comes down to the man. This comes down to his ego.
That's not true.
Oh my gosh, yes it is. How could you say that's not true? This comes down to nothing more than supporting his ego, okay? He needs to have a beautiful young wife. He needs to have all of it. And he needs to be able to walk around town and say, look what I have, everybody. And look what you can't get.
Yeah, but you do realize, though, that this whole this love for, you know, being married for love thing is hormonal. When you fall in love with somebody, it's hormonal. It's not.
There's a reason we have hormones.
Exactly.
I love my hormones.
But the hormones last. You know, I'm going to paraphrase Judge Judy on this when she says, you know, what did she say? Beauty fades, dumb is forever. You know, well, it's the same thing. Beauty fades, but broke is forever. So you really have to start thinking beyond, oh, this person looks nice and I love him, because that stuff is only going to last for a couple of years.
I'm going to go out on a limb here and say, God forbid, what if we provided for ourselves? What if, against all odds, we graduate from high school and college, go on to law school, form our own companies, earn our own paychecks, sit on a talk show, and provide for ourselves?
But what about the other people who don't? What about those?
Those are the ones I'm sorry for.
What about the ones who have the 4 and 5 kids and they still have the broke husband?
That's just plain crazy. Who has 5 kids?
A lot of people do.
That they can't afford.
Crystal is going to tell us a little bit about that.
Right now and break this up.
It's unfortunate, but we're absolutely talking about the erosion of that sort of family village where all of these conversations would be had in the home, mothers to daughters, fathers to sons, talking about how the family and the community needs to continue. Now, agreed, in the old world, there were no retirement accounts and there was no Social Security. And so the children growing up and starting families were expected to care for those parents. But nobody called them prostitutes and nobody called them financially savvy. They called them responsible to that life continuum that keeps the family going. I'd love to see some of that brought in. I'd love us to start to talk in those terms again and redefine the woman's action instead of just calling her bimbos and prostitutes. And I think, where do these words come from? I don't think women gave them those words to themselves, those terms to themselves. And so we'll see new terms and women will define themselves in new ways when they begin to harness that power and use it to make all life on the planet better. They'll get involved in all the issues and global warming, and just women will take this role and be at the forefront and care for themselves and provide for their families right alongside, in partnership, in tandem with their spouses, so that it doesn't rest on her and it doesn't rest on him. It rests on the success of the marriage. It rests on the success of the marriage the same as it rests on the success of a legal career or any other successful career. And so I'd love to see that shift. I'd love to see us getting to that place and having people learn how to manage money and build wealth and come from high school and go into adulthood and go through college or whatever and come out and emerge financially savvy, ready and prepared for marriage. I hate the idea of families being left in the hands of people who are ill-prepared to take them forward.
Well, what you're describing is individual achievement. Okay?
Absolutely.
Individual achievement and a partnership. Okay? And there's nothing wrong with that, because essentially marriage is a partnership. But it's a partnership between two people who are both contributing in some meaningful way, not just you look great and you're like a fancy piece of jewelry, you know, hanging off
Trophy
my arm.
wife.
Exactly. I mean,
It's a
nothing more
trophy
than, you know, than that great piece of jewelry. Like, hey, Hugh, what a great bracelet. You know, I mean, it's like, no, this is a woman, a person who is really, I don't think she's being elevated in any way. In fact, I think the opposite. She's being stifled. I don't see how she's really going to have the opportunity to develop her mind, to develop her abilities. I mean, unless she, you know, pursue these things.
But there are some women who do that. You know, Babyface Edmonds did that. He married Tracey Edmonds, who was another, you know, so-called trophy wife. And what she did was, when she married him, he was only in the music business. And what Tracey Edmonds did was, she was a college graduate, whatever, and she says, you know, I'm not going to be a bracelet on your wrist. So when we go out, I'm going to do something for myself. And she actually took Babyface to the next level, where they were producing movies and television shows and that sort of thing. There's nothing that says, maybe you don't have the opportunity right now, but there's nothing that says you can't better yourself through a marriage contract.
Absolutely. And as they say, behind every successful man is a woman, right?
Absolutely.
Behind every successful man is a woman. But again, that is when you're growing together. That's when you have a common goals. That's part of what marriage is about. Where you have these common goals. You're supporting each other, and you're building your way through the relationship in a partnership. And we're not talking about, again, the typical marrying for money scenario, which is, you know, I'm 22 and amazing, and you're 72 and not, but you have a lot of money, okay, and you're going to take care of me, and I'm going to take that for as long as I can take that, and I'm going to enjoy that because this is such a great contract for me, and I'm going to travel the world and do whatever you want me to do, and I'm going to enjoy this life for this ride. Actually, this sounds pretty good. Now that I think about it.
There we go. I think you won there, Crystal.
Come full circle now.
That's it. You've convinced me. All right, I've changed my position in the show.
All right, so Donald Trump, if you're watching, you know, please call Adeline.
She's gone blonde.
Yeah.
She'll qualify.
There you go.
So, no, but it really is. I mean, all levity aside, it really is. It's a social contract, and there's more to it than just sex. There's more to it than just, you know, having sex with someone for money. There's a lot more. And, you know, like I was telling you before, my husband and I have a 17-year-old daughter, and I always tell her, I said, you can just as easily fall in love with someone who's college educated, who's smart, who's going places, someone who has potential, and as someone who's hanging out at the street corner, you know, with his friends and not planning on doing anything with his life.
Sure.
She has a future, so why shouldn't she look for someone who has a bright future, or someone who's already established? So I don't see anything wrong with it.
If you meet a great guy in college, wonderful. Again, that's what we're talking about, okay? We're talking about a partnership. I mean, love should be part of the equation, following your heart, falling in love, the whole finances. Prince Charming, okay? I'm not saying that you shouldn't take finances and financial security into, you know, as a factor. Of course, it's part of the factor. It's part of the partnership. What is going to make this relationship successful? The fact that we have common goals, the fact that we're both college students or college educated, or we have careers, or we have, you know, goals or dreams that we're heading towards, and that we can individually contribute towards this. But again, I think, you know, Hugh Hefner's college days are behind him, and you know, Blondie, whoever she is, you know, if they're in her future or wherever they are, maybe somewhere in her distant past, God only knows. Okay, she'll certainly be able to afford the best colleges.
Exactly. Sure. Once he croaks, then she can go back. Now, but Crystal, in your line of work, tell us a little bit about what you see, because I'm sure it's the women who are going to court and trying to get this child support stuff. So even though we want to say, well, you know, we can go to law school and we can do this, women are still kind of, you know, depending on men to help them through, to give them financial support for their kids.
They shouldn't. That's insane.
But in
I don't agree with that either.
In a large sector of society, they do. So, and I know you see this a lot in your line of work.
Absolutely. We're absolutely talking about the underdevelopment of the human mind, the American mind, that's not preparing people for this future and not preparing them for these modern times. And we can remedy that. That can be remedied with a library card. That can be remedied by buying a plan like a Legal Shield plan that helps people to consult with attorneys and get the consultations and information that they need. This is the information age, and we absolutely should take advantage of that. It's empowering, and I'd love to see women being empowered to have better choices, to make better choices for themselves and the families that they'll have. It's hard to look at Hugh Hefner on TV and think that we are seeing the sum total of their marriage and their agreement. I certainly do hope that there's more to it than what we see.
Hope so too.
And I hope that there's more
sake.
to the women that he's marrying. I can't imagine what other kind of woman a Hugh Hefner could have with all the playmates around. Not every woman could be his wife and be in that environment. And that's what we're talking about, where man is preparing for marriage, he's preparing a life, and then he's asking a woman to share that life with him. And how many women could share Hugh Hefner's life?
Exactly. Yeah, sharing.
Sharing, right.
Maybe if you bring in a harem of about 30 good-looking, great guys, you know, and we can share in that direction too.
Exactly.
I'll be happy to enter into this kind of contract.
Exactly. So if you don't have a mother like Mirna to point that out, and you don't have these other important conversations taking place in your life, we're doing that work across the globe and across the world, where we're seeing these emerging groups and organizations organized around helping women have and make better choices and know that they have these options. And the options come to us through formal education, going to law school, but also, again, you can get information and education from a myriad of sources. In fact, access to the internet has now become a new human right, so that people have access to information that they need to live and make decisions. This is a huge issue, and it's being spread across the globe to look at how much access people have and how they're using that access.
Absolutely.
And how they can improve their lives. And it's all about the quality of life. And I applaud anybody who gets exactly what they want out of life.
No matter
and
how
I
how
support
they
women
get it.
getting that. Sure.
Sure.
Okay, well, that was very enlightening, ladies. Thank you so much. But we do need to move on to our lightning round. And our lightning round for today is, should all inmates, prisoners, be granted rights to conjugal visits? So, Adeline, let's start with you.
I think you already know my position on this one, okay? A big fat no. Okay, big fat no. When kids get suspended in school, do we throw them pizza parties and serve them ice cream and say, good job, kid? No. You know, by the time you're 12 years old, you already have your moral foundation. You understand right from wrong. You can make these determinations. You have a sense of consequences for your bad choices. Certainly by the time you become an adult and you choose to break the law or do something that lands you in prison, you shouldn't also have access to some of the things that you enjoyed when you were a free person, with the opportunity to make good choices, the right choices. Okay, so certainly one of the consequences of choosing to make bad choices, of breaking the law, of landing yourself in prison, is losing your sexual freedom. And you shouldn't have that. You shouldn't be allowed to have that. No, absolutely not. They shouldn't.
Well, this is one that I'm sort of torn on. Frankly, I think it's unnatural to keep people cooped up in cages, and then not only are you keeping them cooped up in cages, now you're telling them, well, this natural biological function, you can't take part in it. So for me, again, I'm torn, because it's like telling somebody you can't use the bathroom. You can't. It's a natural biological function. At the same time, though, there are so many security concerns and other things that you have to worry about. There was something in the news just 2 weeks ago. It was about this woman, and she went to visit her son, and it wasn't a maximum security prison, so she was able to see him face to face in a visiting room. And she went to kiss her son, and the guards initially thought nothing of it, except this kiss was taking forever. And so the guards were like, well, what's going on? Is this woman tonguing her son now? They come to find out that she's passing him drugs. See? So she's passing him drugs. And of course now, you know, this becomes a whole issue. So, and some people cannot be rehabilitated. You're already in prison. Why are you accepting drugs or telling your mother, bring me drugs into prison? So you have the security concerns, you have the concerns with the drugs. So I guess I'm going to have to err on the side of saying no on this one. Crystal?
Well, I like the idea of conjugal visits, and I kind of support them in the structure that they currently have today, which is that conjugal visits are absolutely for married people. So if an inmate was married before he became an inmate or she became an inmate, that inmate can do the work to comply with prison policies and procedures and earn a conjugal visit. Conjugal visits are not rights. They have to do a lot of stringent hard work and meet stringent requirements in order to earn a conjugal visit. And I like that, because this way the conjugal visit is around not the individual, but in securing and reinforcing the family bond between two spouses who were impacted by this negative event, incarceration. one of the spouses became an inmate. And so in addition, I'd like to see that expanded, because right now conjugal visits are only available in about 8 states. New York is one, and so 7 other states in this country. The rest of the states don't even offer conjugal visits. So I say no, it shouldn't be for all inmates. It should only be for inmates who were married before they became inmates, and it should be used as a tool to reinforce in them that someday they will return to life and they will be returning to that family, and that involves work, and they have to do the work to have a simple 24 to 72 hour conjugal visit, and when they get out of prison they're going to have to do the work to sustain that again. That's good stuff. I support that, and I support anything in a prison that helps prisoners return to life. Let's save however many prisoners we can, help and rehabilitate and return to life as many as we can. We can't save them all, we can't help them all, but the ones that we can, because there's a disproportionate number of people in prison who have learning disabilities, who have other types of drug or other related challenges that help to bring them into a situation for which they then became an inmate. And so if we can help them to work on their disabilities and to return to their families, let's do it. It doesn't cost us anything as a society.
To some extent, I'm sorry, Crystal, it sounds to me like you're also imposing some sort of religious values into this decision-making process when you say only if they were married before they went to prison. So, okay, if I'm a serial killer but I was married before I went to prison, and I should be entitled to go ahead and continue to have conjugal visits and a meaningful relationship with my wife and children, who I may never rejoin in society because I was married before I went into prison. So well, I don't know that everyone would feel that
well, not
way
at all.
necessarily.
Those are not my requirements. This is how it works. Federal prisoners are not entitled, cannot earn conjugal visits. It's not available in the federal prison system and the like. And so in state prisons, absolutely, these inmates have to have the good behavior. They have to, the spouse who's coming in cannot be an inmate, so you can't have conjugal visits between 2 inmates. It's not a religious issue, but certainly inmates would be inspired to get married while in prison so that they could have a conjugal, so they can get married while they're in prison. So that they could get a conjugal visit, and that's not available to them. This has to be for bona fide families who were families before this inmate incarceration situation occurred.
No. Well, Crystal and Adeline, thank you so much for that enlightening conversation. That's really all the time we have for this episode of The Opinion, but we do look forward to hearing from everyone out there. Our viewers, please continue to send us emails, and we look forward to being with you again for the next episode. Thank you all for watching.
Bye. Thank you. This is wonderful. Thank you, guys.
Yeah,
Thank you.